Genesis 14, an exegetical and biblical-theological commentary. Today we're diving into Genesis chapter 14, an exegetical and biblical-theological commentary. This chapter plays a pivotal role in the unfolding of God's divine promise plan. Introduction to the narrative context. Within the progressive unfolding of God's divine promise plan, Genesis 14 serves as a critical demonstration of Yahweh's sovereign ability to protect the bearer of the covenantal promises amid international geopolitical upheaval. Following the division of the nations at Babel and the subsequent call of Abram to be the conduit of universal blessing, the patriarch finds himself entangled in a massive regional conflict. This narrative not only highlights Abram's role as a faithful and capable warrior in the land God has promised him, but also introduces a profound theological worldview centered on Elyon, God Most High, the supreme creator and possessor of heaven and earth. By showcasing Abram's military victory and his subsequent submission to Melchizedek, the text establishes that the promised blessings of God are secured not through human geopolitical alliances, such as the one offered by the King of Sodom, but through the sovereign protective hand of the Maker of all things. Exegesis of Genesis 14. The coalition of eastern kings and the capture of Lot, verses 1 through 12. Genesis 14 opens with a sprawling geopolitical conflict involving a coalition of 4 eastern kings led by Chedorlaomer of Elam. These forces launch a devastating campaign against 5 rebellious vassal kings in the Jordan Valley who had served them for 12 years. Chedorlaomer's forces march southward, systematically wiping out the Rephaim, Zuzim, Emim, and Horites, groups sometimes associated in the wider biblical context with giant clans. The rebel kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, whose names may be symbolic of wickedness, attempt to fight back in the valley of Siddim but are defeated, with some falling into the region's numerous asphalt or tar pits. As a result of the rout, Lot and his possessions are abducted from Sodom. This introduces a severe complication to the narrative and threatens Abram's extended family. Abram's heroic rescue mission, verses 13 through 16. Abram, uniquely identified here as the Hebrew, receives word of his nephew's capture from an escapee. He responds not as a mere pastoral nomad, but as a capable military leader who acts decisively to protect his kin. Abram musters an armed force of 318 trained men born in his own household. The text describes a nighttime assault that enables Abram's forces to overcome the powerful Eastern coalition, pursuing them as far north as Dan, an anachronistic name reflecting later editorial updating for audience comprehension. This victory secures the rescue of Lot, his family, and all their possessions, demonstrating God's providential empowerment of the patriarch. The dual encounters, Melchizedek and the King of Sodom, verses 17 through 24. Returning victorious, Abram is met in the Shaveh Valley by 2 contrasting monarchs, the King of Sodom and Melchizedek, King of Salem. This juxtaposition tests Abram's reliance on the divine promises. Melchizedek, whose name means King of Righteousness, and who serves as the priest of God Most High, Elyon, brings out bread and wine to bless Abram. Melchizedek's blessing identifies God as the possessor or creator of heaven and earth and the sovereign agent who delivered Abram's enemies into his hands. In response, Abram gives this priest-king a tithe, a tenth of everything recovered, demonstrating his submission to God's representative. Conversely, Abram vehemently rejects the King of Sodom's offer to keep the recovered goods. He swears an oath to the Lord, Yahweh, explicitly identifying him with Melchizedek's God, Elyon. Abram refuses to take even a thread or sandal strap, ensuring that a pagan king could never claim, "I have made Abram rich." In this way, he fully attributes his wealth and blessing to God's promise plan. New Testament appropriations. The sudden appearance of Melchizedek as a priest-king who blesses the patriarch Abram serves as a profound typological anchor for the New Testament's exposition of Christ's superior eternal priesthood. In Hebrews chapter 7, verses 1 through 3, the author explicitly draws upon the Genesis 14 narrative. He emphasizes that Melchizedek, king of righteousness and king of peace, has no recorded genealogy in the Torah, rendering his priesthood a fitting type for the eternal priesthood of Jesus Christ. In Hebrews 7 verses 4 through 10, the author highlights the canonical hierarchy that the lesser is blessed by the greater. By Abram paying tithes to Melchizedek, the Levitical priesthood, still in Abram's loins, effectively submitted to the Melchizedekian order, proving its canonical superiority. Theological synthesis. Viewed through the lens of Promise Plan theology, Genesis 14 is a masterful demonstration of the organic unity of God's redemptive work. Abram, the carrier of the seed promise, acts within the concrete historical realities of ancient Near Eastern warfare. Yet his victory is not a triumph of human imperialism, but of divine fidelity. The emergence of Melchizedek proves that Yahweh's sovereign authority as the maker of heaven and earth is recognized even beyond the immediate covenant family. Abram's refusal to enrich himself through the King of Sodom underscores a foundational biblical principle. The people of God must rely entirely on the divine promise plan rather than the compromised systems of the world. This historical physical reality of a localized priest-king in Salem points forward organically to the ultimate cosmic fulfillment in Jesus Christ, the eternal priest-king, without stripping ethnic Israel or the original patriarchal narratives of their concrete historical significance. That concludes our look at Genesis 14. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the full article on Substack for citations, footnotes, and deeper discussion. Subscribe for more content like this. God bless.